Hello, I'm Ken Besler of Kenneth Besler Ministries, Canada. We have been engaging upon a study of the revelation of Jesus Christ. We've begun with part 1, which shows us the setting, as is depicted from the synoptic gospel writers Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Today we will conclude part 1 by looking at two prophecies that Jesus quoted when he answered the disciples' questions in Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 21. Turn with me, if you will, to Daniel chapter 9. First prophecy deals with the abomination that causes desolation. Then we will look at the second prophecy from Jeremiah, which deals with the Great Tribulation. And then we will close with John's relationship between his gospel and the revelation. Daniel chapter 9 and verse 27. He will make a strong covenant with leaders for 1 week of years. For half of the week will put a stop to the sacrifice and the grain offering. On the wing of detestable things the desolator will come and continue until the already decreed destruction is poured out on the desolator. And over to chapter 11 and verse 31. Armed forces will come at his order and profane the sanctuary and fortress. They will abolish the daily burnt offering and set up the abomination that causes desolation. Keep this one in mind. Armed forces will come at his order. And over to chapter 12 and verse 11. From the time the regular burnt offering is taken away, the abomination that causes desolation is set up. There will be 1290 days. How blessed will be anyone who waits and arrives at the 1335th day. Let's now look at the Gospels, at Jesus' response in Matthew chapter 24. And verse 15. So when you see the abomination that causes desolation, spoken about through the prophet Daniel, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand the allusion. That will be the time for those in Judah to escape to the hills. Over to Mark 15, or 13, and verse 14. Now when you see the abomination that causes devastation standing where it ought not to be, let the reader understand the allusion. That will be the time for those in Judah to escape to the hills. So Mark says the same thing as Matthew. Let us turn now to Luke 21. Luke defines that abomination of desolation. Verse 20. However, when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies, then you are to understand that she is about to be destroyed. Devastate the abomination that causes desolation. What a terrible time it will be for pregnant women and nursing mothers, for there will be great distress in the land and judgment on the people. Daniel said, when the armies are about to be deployed. Luke says, when you see the armies surrounding Jerusalem. Therefore, the abomination that causes desolation was the Roman armies. Now let's look at second prophecy, dealing with the Great Tribulation. Let's turn back over to Matthew 24 again. and verse 21. For there will be trouble then worse than there ever has been from the beginning of the world until now. And there will be nothing like it again. He quotes from Joel chapter 2 and verse 2 and Daniel chapter 12 and verse 1. Let us turn over to Mark 13 and verse 19. For there will be worse trouble at that time than there ever has been from the very beginning, when God created the universe until now. There will be nothing like it again. Worse trouble. The Greek word for great tribulation is prophesies megale, tribulation great. This term is used in the Gospels, in the epistles, and also, as we're familiar with, in Revelation. The writers just use synonyms to define the same event. Let us look at Revelation chapter 2, and verse 22. Speaking to the church at Thyatira concerning Jezebel. So I am throwing her into a sickbed, and those who commit adultery with her I am throwing into great trouble, unless they turn from the sins connected from what she does. And chapter 7 and verse 14. Sir answered, you know. Then he told me, these are the people who have come out of the great tribulation. They have washed their robes and made them white with the blood of the Lamb. This is why they are before the throne. So we have seen that Matthew uses great affliction. Mark uses affliction such as has not been. Luke uses great distress. Revelation uses great tribulation. The same word. The same words. Only Mark uses tribulation, then he adds the adverb phrase such as has not been. Luke uses megale, and he uses a synonym, distress, tribulation, persecution, all mean the same thing. Let us back up to Matthew chapter 23. Remember, Jesus said these words. He was quoting from Jeremiah chapter 22 and verse 5. He says, look, God is abandoning your house to you, leaving it, what? Desolate. Desolate. Now, what about John? Is there any connection from his gospel to the Revelation? Some people think John is not the writer of the Revelation, but I can prove to you that he is. There is a link. Turn with me to John chapter 19 and verse 36. Now John is talking about things that have been fulfilled. And he says, "For these things happen in order to fulfill the passage of the Old Testament. Not one of his bones will be broken." Quotes from Psalm 34, Exodus 12, and Numbers 9. We know that when Jesus died on the cross, not one of his bones were broken. Now in verse 37 he says, "And again, another passage says, they will look at him whom they have pierced." And he speaks from Zechariah 12:10. Turn with me now over to Revelation chapter 1. And verse 7. "Look, he is coming with clouds." John quotes Daniel 7:13. And he adds, "Every eye will see him, including those who pierced him, and all the tribes of the land will mourn him." The same verse. John just adds a little more information around it. Notwithstanding, it is fulfilled. So here is the link. What did not John write in his gospel that he elaborates on in the Revelation? First, the ascension of Christ, and second, the destruction of the temple. The synoptic writers, all three of them, did address those issues, but John created a second volume, which I term the Gospel according to John, volume 2, or the revelation of Jesus Christ. So we have looked in part 1 now at the setting. We have looked at the disciples' question to Jesus concerning his return and what that meant. We looked at Jesus' response and gave syntactic evidence that it is indeed one address to their threefold question. And we have looked at the prophecies that Jesus brought out, and John's link to the revelation. Should be no doubt in our mind that the end of the days, the end of the age, was concerning Israel, concerning the Old Covenant. Next time we will go into Revelation chapter 1 in our study. I thank you for joining me. As always, you may forward your correspondence to Kenneth Besler Ministries, 2011@gmail.com. That's Kenneth Besler, spelled B-E-S-L-E-R, 2011@gmail.com. Thank you for watching. God bless.